Okay, being seen and heard and seen. And I think we've covered a lot of this throughout, but let's make sure we didn't overlook anything important here. We talked about making the case, how to do that with good data and planning and narrative and bullet points and cost benefit analyses. The business case, what if we don't do it? What is the cost? What is the additional, what's the cost that could be saved in maintenance, in access challenges, in conservation? Or what is the opportunity if you're housing something for the overall value of the institution? Snowden, we were talking about how to make the case in a public institution versus a private institution, and if it's you gave the example of a studio that if the studio is not in the business of archives, but often has an archive. There is value and dollars that can be put to the care and longevity and access to that as the IP of
yes.
the institution that will enhance the overall value of the company.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're often, even a nonprofits are still businesses, right? Like it's always good to be able to make a business case for what you're talking about, and be able to talk about value, not in terms just of dollars and cents, but in terms of things like an institutional legacy. If we don't create a dedicated storage facility for our 25 years of motion picture production history as an independent studio, what's going to happen to us? Like, will it be as if we're never here at all? One thing that people sometimes do respond to more is thinking about legacy rather than current expense. However, it's also good to be really pragmatic about the fact that the people that have to make these approvals are driven by particular kinds of motivations. So understanding what their motivation is and making your argument based on that motivation, if you can. If a studio manager, studio, unit head is probably going to be in their job for 3 or 4 years tops, and then they're going to move on. So they're always going to be watching their budget for this year and maybe next year. And then after that, as Louis XIV said, après moi le déluge, like they're always going to make a decision that's based on what's this year's bottom line and how am I going to come out of this year looking good. It's very, very few leaders and nonprofits are more, at an advantage in this, that nonprofit leaders, I think, are more inclined to think about legacy and think about things in a longer term than people who are working in a for-profit setting. But that doesn't mean, and I think we have somebody with us today who's at a fashion archive, and thinking about how is your archive getting used in a way that supports that business motive of making money? How do you contribute value that is measurable? Maybe that is like just tracking how many people from within the company are using your collections, but if you have thoughts on that, we'd love to hear them.
Yeah, and then we have reframing problems as opportunities. These can, thinking creatively about what problems you face, and again, looking at what benefits of an incremental project to get to an endpoint, and how to sell that project to people who may not be thinking very long term. But even in nonprofit institutions, you have plenty of very kind of narrow thinking about the function and purpose without seeing all of the things that support that mission. But how can a housed, properly stored, maintained archive and collection ultimately benefit the bottom line, ultimately add to the prestige, if that's the motivating force, use it as, there's marketing opportunities. If you look at any number of institutional blogs. They want to show what's behind the scenes. They want to have visual display exhibitions of things that are in deep storage because they are proud of, and it's good content, right? Making the case from a not just marketing but also development opportunities we talked about. Bringing in new interest, energy in developing, smaller scale, larger scale kind of goals and objectives that are shared out to the broader community that is interested in an institution and an archive.
And this is to circle back again to that creating essential documents session that we did previously several weeks ago. Having a mission statement, being able to say, this is mission focused work, this supports our mission in a very, very specific way. This is what we do. So we need to do this. That mission statement can be used kind of as a gentle cudgel to get what you want. Being able to connect your asks with the mission of your organization is really key.
So, just going back to the fundamental of being heard is asking to be at the table, stating that you have the expertise, building the trust within an institution, within a project team, to be a full participant in a project, if it's a construction project or design project. Also, at the budgeting roundtable, and making sure that all interested stakeholders are heard, advocating for and hopefully building consensus around a project. And again, that's not just the archivist, but it's the registrar, the collection access person, the marketing department, the development department, every part of an institution. We're talking, obviously, our backgrounds are a little bit, sometimes larger institutions, sometimes smaller. If you're looking at a very, on a much smaller scale, that might be, 3 people in one, and your maintenance might be outsourced. So really building your internal, your personal capacity to ask those questions and be building your credibility within a small institution is just as valuable.
Point of clarification to Denise's question. Hi, Denise, about when she asked for ideas for cataloging, and I'm not clear why cataloging might be different than the database. Can they fold into each other? Are these two different approaches to keeping track of stuff?
Well, I think it depends on your institutional function. I mean, from what you're talking about, I understand is your personal archive and collection. And I, from my point of view, no, they don't need to be different. And why add that added layer of complication if you have a tool that takes care of all in one? But a institutional archive or collection would not use Airtable. It would not be the accepted tool for, even though it might function perfectly well for that. It's the other tools out there that are relevant and vetted and tested and secure and all those things that need to happen. So,
yeah, I recall.
I can explain all the reasons why. It's not my expertise.
Well,
but
way back, I recall that it seemed in the past, way past, that it was fruitless to try to create a database for your work, because if you, for example, wanted to leave a legacy to a special collections down the road, that would be part of my 10-year plan, that they are going to want money from you for processing, because their database, each institution had a proprietary system. But I can't concern myself with that. I just need to get I'm sorry, that's my puppy. Here he is, my darling boy here with us. I still need to get organized, regardless of whether, my wish for donation to some place would be accepted or not.
yeah.
So Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's good to be aware of that down the road, but it can't be how your decisions are made. But that said, having good basic metadata that is consistently organized will be useful, because you can, just like we showed, we talked about the comma separated value, the CSV file that you can export. All of these places can import it, even if it doesn't meet their particular standards. They're going to need the title, the author, or the creator, the date, all those fundamental things. Those are all going to be useful. It really doesn't matter what format. You can use it in a spreadsheet. You can, put it into a Word table, because you can export, as long as it's consistently organized in a grid of some kind, a matrix of some kind, and it has those kind of basic things, the dimensions, the medium, the condition, whatever, a link to a photograph, then you've done probably all you can really do and really all you ought to do at this point.
So for somebody like me, it's interchangeable to use the term cataloging or database, I guess.
I think the thing to think about, Shelley, this is Lisa, that what's the end result? What do you want from that documentation, right? So the way that I see this database or inventorying is about control, understanding the control of what you have. And a database allows you authority control to see the collections that you have, where cataloging fits into a bigger sort of world of wanting to provide access to the public. People catalog under certain rules and forms, and they use systems so they can speak to other systems. So if you don't have to worry about access, you don't have to worry about, this sort of like cataloging standardization, which Denise, I don't want to speak for you, Denise, but she's coming from, right, an institution, an organization, a museum, where, so I feel like those are the two fundamental differences. And for you, what I see is like, you just want control of what you got and know what you have. And like,
but you're correct. You're correct, though. Excuse me for jumping in there.
No, it's okay.
I do need to address both. After all, I'm really proud of being a part of the directory, with L.A. as subject. I'm actually kind of wondering what software was behind that, but that's a different conversation, because I've had a tough time with it. But in any case, yeah, I think catalog, think of the music industry, right? They call it a catalog of all the music, and for other people's access and for appreciation. And so, yes, I need to address both. So maybe we can talk about that some other time, the components of cataloging that you're versed in and I'm not.
I mean, Lisa and I went to library school at the same time, so I can tell you cataloging was at least 2 full semester courses or full term courses for us. And those were just the basic ones, descriptive cataloging and subject access. And you could go, you could do a full, you could be a specialist in graduate school in cataloging. It is very, very, that's another word where, like, when we say catalog and use it as a verb, it means something very, very different from the way a music industry professional would say our back catalog as a set of business assets. When we catalog, we're verbing, and when other people catalog, they're nouning.
Okay. All right. Well, I've got some research to do on that. Thank you.
So I really want to thank Lisa and Snowden for having me here today. I think I've really only scratched the surface. I gave you I hope I pointed people in a good direction on a number of areas. We couldn't cover any of them in the depth that is really required, but the goal is really to enable everyone to ask good questions, start developing their own priorities, developing a plan, and they're all going to be different depending on your style. Building collaborations and allies within organizations, outside organizations, with your contractors and architects and engineers, and really looking at the process not as one that needs to be overwhelming and intimidating, even though they all will be at some point, but one that is can be sliced and diced and organized and iterated, and where complexity and can be built and capacity can be built all along the process. So I'm happy to have done this, and I hope to share more if anybody cares to contact me about any specific problem, challenge, or opportunity.
Thank you all. Yeah, and thank you, Andrew. Big, it's so much helpful information, and I learned every bit as much as I have shared today. Thanks. Have a great weekend, everybody.